IVM.
Hey guys, even though Elon Musk is trying to turn everyone into robots, you'll be happy to know that very real human beings work at IVM Podcast, and some of them are even cool. How do I know? Well, listen to their own podcast, IVM Likes, where they recommend what they are listening to, watching, or reading. Catch IVM Likes every Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And may I recommend the IVM Podcasts app? Hey everybody, welcome to an episode of the Geek Podcast. My name is Tejas. With me is Jishnu. Hi Jishnu.
Hello.
Jishnu, before we get to the business of doing this episode, we have a lot of email that we have not read.
Do we?
Yeah.
A lot?
Yes, plenty of email.
More than one?
More than one.
Oh wow.
And I felt like we have had at least 2 weeks to kind of explore it, and it kept slipping our mind.
Explore it?
Yeah, because they're quite lengthy emails.
No, that's true. One of them is.
Well, yeah, one of them is.
I have not seen the
Okay,
other.
so but I don't know which ones you've read in the last few weeks in my absence, and likewise.
Hit me, and I will tell you to shut up or not.
Okay, cool. Here we go. The first one is this one. Have you read this one from Shivank? It says, "Is it just me, or does Himesh Patel look like Short Round?" Does Himesh Patel look like Jishnu? We put up a poll on our Twitter.
Did we?
No, we will.
Oh, okay.
Now that I've read it. Have you read this question?
I have read this question.
Okay, cool.
And
And what were the thoughts on this question and then the following? Any thoughts on Yesterday, the movie? We haven't seen Yesterday.
We haven't seen
yet.
Yesterday yet. I'm waiting for the home release.
Yes, likewise. It came for all of 1 week and I wasn't here, so it just passed me by.
I'm not reading Beatles lyrics,
I know.
so I'm seeing it at home.
Yeah, same.
So, Himesh Patel.
Yeah. What do you look like, Himesh Patel? Am I supposed to do a quick Google of this man?
That's what I'm doing right now, and I
Himesh
think
Patel. I think it's because Jishnu's entire personality is of someone who is likely to have been in this position. Would you have been a person in the position of Himesh Patel in this movie, where he realizes that he's a Beatles fan? Nobody else knows about the Beatles. You're a big Beatles fan, so
I'm a
it's
huge
like,
Beatles fan.
I mean, who isn't a big Beatles fan? But my point is that you're the kind of person, you're like a troubadour, so you would do this. I mean, I don't know if you would subscribe to, hoodwinking the world.
do you mean would I do what he's doing in the movie?
Yeah, I don't think you'd do
I haven't
that.
seen the movie. I've seen like a trailer months ago. I don't quite remember what it's about. All I know is it's a jukebox musical about the Beatles, and it's in a world where the Beatles don't exist.
Well, it's about how, only one person remembers of
Right.
the Beatles existing. So, and he kind of takes advantage of it. Unknowingly, it just happens. But does he look like Short Round? Let me have a look.
I mean,
he's a bearded, young brown
He's
man.
a bearded brown dude with the hair.
got hair,
I'm like a malnourished version of him.
You are. He's healthier.
Yeah, he's a healthier man than I am.
Okay, cool. So that's one thing.
My official statement.
All I can say to Danny Boyle, who's made this movie on Yesterday, is all I can say is, Danny, don't make it bad. Right, all right. Let's move on. Next email. Next email comes from our very good friend Ruchi. So she's kind of a Geek Food collaborator and she's part of our team.
Mm-hmm.
So is it fair? And the subject of her email is just trying to get some merch. I did make this point earlier that whoever writes the best email gets.
This is still on you.
Of course.
This is completely on you.
It's fine. I'm happy to accept that responsibility.
You can send all bribes to tejasmenon@gmail.com.
That's not my email address at all. 1 second.
Well, you can still send them there. I'm sure tejasmenon@gmail.com would appreciate
whoever
it.
that guy is. One thing I would like to say is that good try, Ruchi. You can't win because have you ever seen those terms and conditions when you were a kid or something? Employees of the same agency / organization cannot win.
In her defense, employees are paid in cash monies.
Also true.
I don't think that's happened yet.
I'll read this email regardless. Hello, best friend. Full stop. Sup, Tejas and Jishnu. Okay, I guess Dink's army is getting larger by the day. Without wasting any time, /space, : bulletin point.
That's a lot of punctuation.
It's great. Yeah, it's solid.
I like it.
She is a writer. Thanks a bunch for all the random mentions over the years. Parentheses.
I love it when you talk punctuation to me.
It actually might be singular, but it italicized bold feels like Geek Fruit and I have known each other forever. Superscript.
I have
trademarked.
comprehended none of this sentence.
So it might feel like it's been a singular mention, but it feels like Geek Fruit and I have known each other forever.
There you
Trademarked.
go. Cool.
All right. It's like being mentioned on Twitter, but better. Please consider dedicating an episode / part of an episode to The Handmaid's Tale. You're the Nerd Police. It definitely falls under your jurisdiction. More so than today's episode does, really.
Very much so.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm a big Lizzie Moss fan, so let's do it at some point. This is me appealing to the Jishnu Quadrant. A few months ago, I met someone who is also a huge fan of Bold, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Needless to say, we're friends now. In quotes, friends. A matter of utmost importance. I need to know Jishnu's top 3 rappers of all time. He doesn't need to know the answer right away, of course. I understand the stressful nature of this question.
Fine.
Can you do this?
I can do it. I can do it.
Hit me, man.
Number 1 is cellophane.
Okay.
Number 2 is
Cling film.
newspaper. Number 3 is bubble wrap.
What about birthday present rap?
No, that's cellophane.
Oh, that's cellophane.
That's cellophane.
What's cling film? Is it
cling
just...
film is saran wrap, like the translucent shrink wrap.
Got it.
Yeah.
Go on.
There you go.
Jishnu is...
I'm on this, man.
He's too good. All right. You cannot best this man. Shout out to my faves one time, Siddhant, ex-producer, former producer of the Geek Fruit podcast.
Beethoven
something,
sits.
Yeah, Beethoven sits. Something that can go on your CV forever. A goat, she says. And Janam, in brackets, call me. All right. I'm aware that we will die at some point and leave this dimension with no carry-ons. Having said that, it would mean, I know that's a dig at me, it would mean the world to me if I win the t-shirt. It would be even better to win the underwear. There's no underwear.
That's what I'm telling you. Underwear is a far better thing to make than the t-shirts. Ellen can't monopolize this for long.
Can't.
She's had the monopoly for like years now. I think it's high time that
if
we
this
give her
is
some
my
competition.
responsibility, I'm going to have to do some more research.
I mean, you can have a variety of underwear. It doesn't all have to be just like I think Ellen mainly does like the boxer brief kinds.
Wait, what are you talking about? What has Ellen got to do with this? Does she give underwear to people?
Ellen makes underwear, and that's like her thing.
Like Ellen DeGeneres?
DG, yeah.
Okay.
So she gives people underwear on
I thought
the
she's the new Oprah and she just gives people stuff.
Yeah, but she doesn't have Oprah's bucks. So Oprah gives cars, Ellen gives chuddies.
No, she's given a lot of stuff.
She's given a lot of stuff, but it's from like sponsor things.
Everyone's
like, hey,
going...
Shutterfly is going to give you 500. What? I give you chuddies.
Okay,
that's how Ellen works. Anyway, my point is, we can expand that universe. So she gives like boxer briefs
because it's got it's elastic. That's why.
Yeah. So we can do we can do the whole gamut. We can do briefs, boxer briefs, thongs.
Okay,
assless chaps.
I'll have to get back to
regular
you on
chaps.
This. Okay. All right. She does have one concluding point. Lastly, but most importantly, congratulations on 250 plus episodes. That's major. That's beyond. You're all gorgeous divas who slay and will continue to slay because the fate of this universe depends on it. I'm very impatient knowing your best is yet to come.
What's the timestamp on this email? How drunk was she?
Well, let me find out. Well, she's in Ireland. Scotland. So this is 8:01 p.m. and she does
8:01 p.m. So
she's fine.
She was day drinking. Okay.
Damn, I thought this was the podcast app. Why y'all got a snap? Love you girls. Love Geek Fruit. Big Geek Fruit guy. And that's it. How's that for f***ing fan mail? Signed, Ruchi Singh Vasudev, President. #Dinks Army. All right, that is a mail. That's quite a mail.
Oof.
So that's a whole mail.
That's all for today.
Wait, we have. Do we?
There's
have
more?
Don't we have one more? Did you guys read out Parag Kashyap's email?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. Oh man, this is so good though. I really want to get into it. Damn it. All right, cool. Parag, thanks for writing again. All right. Okay,
you
cool.
You can mail him.
I'll mail him. All right. I will say that Ishan Krishna mailed us a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Team Suds, and he said Chernobyl, please. Just do it already. And so we have come to this episode. I want to ask though, is there any particular reason why we're doing this episode? I mean, the show is excellent. Obviously, it's worth talking about.
No particular reason other than we just couldn't think of anything else that we felt like indulging in. And I had already seen it, and I've seen the first episode twice. That's how much I loved it. I saw the whole thing, and I had to see the first episode again.
So tell me one thing. It is worth watching again. I do also recommend that. Do you know when this show came out? When did it come out? A few months ago?
A couple of months ago. Yeah.
Because I usually follow sometimes I follow what other people are talking about. Pop Culture Happy Hour from NPR. We both follow Glenn Weldon. They didn't do an episode on this, so I was just like, oh wait, did this come out? Did this not come out? Is it like exclusive somewhere? I don't know. So, but whatever. Hotstar, Zindabad.
It was amazing.
All right, so we're talking about Chernobyl this week. Obviously, does fall outside the realm of what we usually talk about, but it's so good. It's so good that sometimes we just have to ignore those rules.
So you agree?
That the show is great.
So damn good.
It is really great. I will say this. It is quite exceptional. It's been on my thing to watch, and I had some shows before this. In fact, that I was going to start, like Dark, which is this German show on Netflix. But I saw the length of the show. I heard that you had seen it. You want to talk about it, so I was like, cool. I ought to check it out. Anyway, I was wondering, I was like, oh, of course it has to be a mini series and going to be a season 2, hopefully. I mean, though there could be. I mean, there's one other reactor that went off that bad very recently. But I mean, this show is so gripping and so real, and it is real. It actually happened. It's historical. That's why I kind of hate using. I don't want to give a spoiler warning. You can't really spoil history.
That's the thing. You can't spoil the facts, but you can spoil the fact that it takes a lot of creative liberties, especially towards the end. So I have also indulged in the podcast for it, right? That's basically an hour for each episode as well. Yeah. So it's genuinely like watching it twice.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because it's with
Peter Sagal,
Craig Mazin and Peter Sagal, who we love from NPR. So it's a brilliant podcast where he gives a lot of really sweet insights.
Yeah.
Pretty much scene by scene per episode.
Yeah, they kind of dig into it really deep.
It's basically a director's commentary.
It is a director's commentary,
and it's fantastic.
Great, yeah.
I couldn't recommend it enough, especially if you did like the show anywhere as much as we did.
It's from HBO, so this is like the official podcast of the show, and it's like it's all of 5 episodes. The entire show itself, the miniseries is 5 episodes, and it's 5 like 1-hour episodes you can get done with in a weekend. I will say this though, it's a difficult watch. It's hard to watch,
but
it's very like
I watched it in one go.
I know I didn't watch it in one go.
I didn't know that I could do that.
Yeah, no, I mean I didn't have the opportunity to do the same thing, but I did watch it in like maybe just like 2 or 3 sittings. But yeah, it's horrific and it's a tragedy, but it's very well made. It's almost like, and I had to dig, and I found the most bizarre thing because of this. I asked like Craig Mazin says, he's like, I asked a simple question: why did it happen? And my simple question is, who is Craig Mazin? And so I did a little digging, and this man's body of work is hilarious. Incredible.
It's amazing.
Okay, so 2019. let me do this. This is great. 2019, critically acclaimed HBO miniseries Chernobyl. Okay, wait. And the rest of it, okay. The Hangover.
Part 2.
The Hangover Part 2.
The Hangover Part 3.
The Hangover Part 3. Wait, he's written and directed a movie before. Superhero movie. Wait for it. Identity Thief, starring Jason Bateman and Melissa McCarthy. He's done The Huntsman. He's done some random shit, and now I think
scary movies.
He's done a ton of scary movies, and he's working on more stuff right now.
Cowboy, Ninja, Viking.
Yeah,
those are like 3 words that you just like pulled out of a Scrabble.
They wanted to do better than...
We just needed words that we can just
They wanted
put
to do
together.
Cowboys versus Aliens better. But yeah, this guy... no one has really I tried to look up, find out any information about how this man has made this jump from that to this. But all he says was, I just found this thing while I was going through Wikipedia, and then it just interested me. And so I wrote this show. Hey man, you never know what you can do if you just try. It's incredible. So Craig Mazin... Wow, nobody was expecting that.
And if you hear him talk on that podcast, he's incredibly articulate. And he's thought this thing through. He is so thorough with his research.
But,
man, the guy's a pro. But you also did Scary Movie 3 and 4.
But the funny thing is that I think this guy is a funny guy. He's not he's not a... friggin', it's not like Gus Van Sant or like somebody like a serious director's director, like Fincher did this or something. It's not that. This is and he didn't direct the series. Obviously, if you've seen any interviews with the director Johan Renck, he's quite a serious dude, but like he's a musician, he's chill. But specifically Craig Mazin, I mean, he comes off as a pretty chill guy, and they make jokes about like stuff in it. Like today, his Twitter. Do you like?
No.
Okay, so do you know what's happening on Twitter right now? This 30 to 50-year-old hogs.
No.
Okay, so there are many memes from the show. One, obviously, the most famous one is "Not great, not terrible." it's like a big meme, right? Like everyone will make a comment and they say, not great, not terrible. Obviously from the first episode where Dyatlov says, 3.6 Röntgen, not great, not terrible. So like there's this big thing on Twitter because yesterday, I mean tragedy again with the mass murders that are happening in the States, and somebody's response to somebody taking a stand on Twitter was like, one guy's like, we need to have gun control, and this guy, his response was, oh, then what's gonna kill the 30 to 50 feral hogs that are coming every 3 to 5 minutes and attacking my small children while they play? Okay.
Wow.
This tweet blew up on Twitter like over the last 2 days. So everyone's tweets are about 30 to 50 feral hogs. It's just stupid and lame. And Craig Mazin today was just like 30 to 50 feral hogs. Not great. Not terrible. And I was just like, okay, obviously this man has a sense of humor and he's a funny guy. So and Peter Sagal is no less, man. Like, guy's extremely witty.
I love that man.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
But so my thing was like, how did this happen? And so credibly, if you watch Chernobyl, you will think that it was made by like a Frank Darabont, or or somebody like really serious and who has a great command over this kind of material. So, which is why it's even more astounding that this has just literally come out of nowhere. And like everyone is gripped to it, even though it's like Ruchi was saying this the other, she was texting. She's like, it's like science fiction horror except science fact. It's like science horror.
Right.
Yeah. And it's incredible, man. It's so exquisitely made. So I just find that absolutely insane how this happened, and obviously more so about Chernobyl, the actual event.
But so to the end of what you were talking about before with you can't really spoil this. I mean, because it's fact. I think that's where the gray area comes in with the science horror, as you say it. So like, it's science horror. Why? Because the horror, the horror of the deaths and the severity of the gruesomeness of what the radiation poisoning does to people, the gore involved is terrifying. But it's based in actual truth. It's like, that is exactly how it happened. That's exactly pretty much what they look like. That's pretty much how the degradation happens. But then here's where the fiction comes in, which I appreciated after listening to the said podcast and hearing him like break down who actually did what, who actually said what
was real,
what did I expedite, what did I not. I thought this show had one of the most incredible payoffs at the very end. The final episode I thought was brilliantly done. But the final episode is, as he describes, more than 50%
is just
watered down.
Exactly.
Because nobody wants to see weeks worth of courtroom drama where actually the principal character wasn't actually even there.
Yeah, I know.
So I thought that was great because when you see the thing ending, obviously one of the first things I'm sure most people will go like, oh, is seeing that Ludmilla's character is a combination of like several dozens of people.
Not Ludmilla. Ludmilla was real. Komyuk was a combination.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, Komyuk.
Yeah.
I literally have a list in front of me,
it's like,
and it's just gobbledygook. I'm like, what is these
research?
I'm just looking at vowels. There's more vowels than there should be.
No,
I'm looking at a bunch of
but
Eastern European names.
No, so Ludmilla is specifically somebody who was real. But Komyuk, you're right, is a combination of characters.
So her amongst several things in that final episode were really expedited for the sake of drama and just to make things easier for the audience to understand.
Right.
I loved the fact, however, that pretty much the whole way through, I wasn't really thinking too much about was this or wasn't it? Was this real? Was this not? Is this dramatized? Is this fictionalized? Because that's something that tends to happen with stuff with historical storytelling that we've seen a lot. Like the best example I can give you is like World War II.
Right.
We've seen more than a dozen.
And one, yeah.
Yeah. But I think specifically for like the invasion of Normandy and the fallout thereafter, we've seen a ton of different iterations of it, both in novels, in movies, in television, in video games, all these kinds of things. And
video games, my God,
video games like all over the
Battlefield,
place, right? So when you're set into that world that now I kind of feel like we're oddly really familiar with, even though none of us were there, we've seen that Normandy landing scene a million times. And we've seen it done really well. We've seen it done really badly. But then once that scene is done, you like check a box and then you're off and they're like, okay, now it's the director's world.
It's
now
the story.
It's whatever story I want to tell, right? Like there's another one, 1912, I think is 1917, with Benedict Cumberbatch.
I think it's just because that guy's Sam Mendes is obsessed with Nolan. He just wants to recreate everything
I saw the trailer for that and I was like, yeah, I like Benny C. I'm all for this. I like Sam Mendes. He's kind of cool.
But then
I was just looking at this and I was like, this just looks like a video game that you've just made a
it wasn't impressive.
I could be totally wrong, but that's just
I know he's a great director.
But that's what I mean, right? It's just like that whole part of history, the mainly the 2 world wars and the stuff that went down with them.
Yeah.
Bookended by a couple of major events is like you just have to like check off a box. It's like, all right, it's like saying, how do I know that this thing was shot in Paris? You see the Eiffel Tower? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. Now you can you can make your own set as long as the Eiffel Tower's in the background. I believe you're in Paris. So I really enjoyed the fact that for the first time, as far as I'm concerned, I've seen a story about a big piece of history that has just been masked over.
Well, I think there's a good point to that because, I mean, they say like history is always written by the victors, you know, like, so whoever wins the war, that's who history is going to be written by. Yeah. And specifically in all the examples, it's like, Axis powers or, like Allied powers winning over. So you will always get that story. You're right. I think that this is so fresh because it's specifically a Soviet story, and for me, I don't know why, obviously we know about Chernobyl. It happened in the 80s, and we just, I didn't know. For
that's
me,
all we know.
No, but I
that's all I knew. Chernobyl happened. It was in the 80s.
No, but
that's
I mean,
much it.
But obviously about the nuclear fallout, you hear about that stuff. It's there in history books. But the thing that is so interesting about it is that while I was watching this show, I don't know why, but in the back of my mind, at all points, I was like, okay, cool. When is the British or the American gonna come in and save the day, right? What, and there's a fleeting mention of that when they're talking about how to get the graphite off the roof, from the roof of the reactor, and they're saying, let's just ask the Americans, and I was like, there we go, we're finally gonna get Americans in this thing and fix this thing. And what's so astonishing about it is that this is such a Soviet story. And it is singularly their story. So yes, they were responsible, but they also just they got all of their shit together to just save everyone also. Like, they did an incredible job. And it was nice to see this side of the world obviously not being, it's not being made a caricature of. And, the big part of this whole thing was accents, right? If you watch it, and it did throw me off.
Yeah, the first half an hour, I'm just like, wait, what?
You're right. It does throw you off in the beginning that all the actors, the entire cast is essentially speaking with a British accent. I guess barring Stellan Skarsgård, who's got this
the Skarsgård accent.
The Skarsgård, he's got the Skarsgård. But the interesting thing is that it does kind of hit me in my face every now and then. Specifically, also in the last episode, we see Gorbachev with a perfectly British accent. I'm just like, okay, that's also strange. But of course, yes, forgivable for the sake of telling. Man, if the story it wasn't as good as it was, obviously it might have bothered me. But the story's incredible. It's fine. Dyatlov speaks with this really hardcore, I don't know what it is, almost like a West London accent. I'm not even sure, but it's like a very hardcore accent. But he looks like a really Russian dude in that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes.
But just to say that, I think what is so fascinating about this is that, about the actual story, is that they were not only fighting this entire fallout and this entire tragedy, but they are also fighting against, and that's what the entire theme of the show is. What is the cost of lies? They're also fighting their higher power, their government, and the KGB at the same time, and still kind of and basically the thing that kind of really captured my mind at the end of the show is when they're doing these little slates, these text slates at the end, they do at the end of all true crime or whatever it is, any kind of historical docudrama or whatever, is that Gorbachev says that, Chernobyl was probably the reason why the USSR was dissolved. And I found that to be like, wow, okay, I didn't know. But that's probably the extent of how fucked up it must have been in there. But yeah, I just found that fascinating. Yeah.
So to that end, two moments that I think everybody's going to be talking about for days, years even after the fact, is obviously with the subject matter comes the gore, right? So the sight of seeing the people burnt all the way through beyond their skin is one hell of a thing. The second is obviously episode 4, watching puppies being slaughtered is a whole other thing.
Oof, yeah.
So much so that on his podcast, I don't know if you got this far, he mentioned the fact that there was a scene that they didn't even put in that involved a guy doing it without a gun.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, okay. That is, in some ways, I consider that a little easy to go down that path, and he did it really tastefully. You know,
yeah, excellently done.
You show some of them, you don't show others. The fact that I forget which was the one guy.
Bacho.
Was it Bacho that you don't
the
see?
kid or the Bacho is the one who kills the puppies.
No. So not the puppies. With regard to the radiation burns, there was one of the victims that they don't show because Ludmilla says you just saw. He had no face.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right? So they did it pretty tastefully where it wasn't obscene. It was necessary to like understand the severity of the trouble.
100%, yeah.
However, what still sticks with me, and I think is doubly more relevant today now, especially with continuing, gun violence and whatnot in the States, and basically just political powers not listening to reason.
Oh, gosh.
Is the overarching theme of all of this, and kind of what makes Jared Harris's character's point the whole way through as to like why did the show begin with the principal character committing suicide in the first 10 minutes, right? Yeah. It's like how that makes no sense on paper. Like, why would you introduce me to a guy and then kill him immediately where he says like some morbid, grim thing about lies, which at the start of the show means nothing to me.
Yeah.
And then it has to come full circle at the end, obviously, as most things like that do. But the point is that he took his life for something that he knew wouldn't pay off anytime soon. It was something that would be a slow burn that he had to like sacrifice on the will of other people to act just as much as he did. Right? And that, I think, is the message that needed to be told rather than, hey, let's look at the severe, gruesome death and horrible things that went down with it. Because one of the most gripping scenes for me was, I think maybe it's not the only one shot that they did in the whole thing, but like definitely the strongest one-er that they had was, I want to say episode 4, where they had what they called, what were they, the bio-robots?
Amazing humans, basically.
Amazing
so
word.
So
amazing
good.
word.
I mean, he's basically just trying to, it's such a good scene.
It's a brilliant scene.
Even the one where he's just saying, how do we do this?
He's convincing them. Yeah,
and he's like, buy robots.
Yeah. So I love the fact that, I mean, just to clear up what we're talking about, it's episode 4 where they are trying to get the rubble of graphite off the roof of the building, and they have attempted to bring in moon rovers and things like that to try and push it off. Nothing's breaking through, so he said, okay, we just need to do it the old-fashioned way and just get a bunch of dudes to do it, and they have a 90-second clock. Now, when you see a scene like that, a lot of times it's kind of gimmicky to say, hey, I'm going to shoot this thing in real time because he says you have 90 seconds and therefore I'm going to do it as such. And, maybe some fan out there is going to sit and time you when you're watching the final edit and go like, oh, that was cool. You actually did it. That's nice.
Yeah.
This actually had a point, and I loved just how gripping it was to see how easily convinced these people were to do it, between the 3 divers that go in at the very beginning, to the 3,000 bio-robots that do all this, to the guys that shoots tens of thousands of people conscripted to shoot puppies. That's your job.
Yeah.
It's just like, I love the fact that this brought light to not only the gruesome deaths and the horrible, demolition of the entire country, pretty much, and surrounding countries, but the psyche of what the Soviet Empire did to people. In that the propaganda was so damn strong that it's, in a way, kind of compelling. It's sort of like that anti-hero nature of the entire USSR. I love the fact that he made it out to be that these people, even though they were in a repressive society, they had such unabashed patriotism.
Of course.
That they were like,
it's just bred into them.
You want me to die for country? Well, duh. That's how you die. If you don't die for country, you didn't die right.
Man, that's what what I loved about this show, is that the same people. I mean, like, I like that, it is the Soviet Union who is basically responsible for this, with just bureaucrats kind of issuing, these orders, and everybody has to just follow it blindly. Right. But at the same time, it is the very people who, have built, what this nation is made up of, is that comes to the rescue. And like, even though it's probably not as dramatic as, people standing up and saying, I will do this for my country,
right,
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But those people were real people. The 3 miners, or the the divers, what they called, that had to open these sluice gates and let water out so that it wouldn't have a thermal meltdown. So all these three people were real, man. The miners were real. They were just like incredible. And what we found out later on is that they didn't actually have to do it. Like the miners had to go in and dig basically a hole and get all the liquid nitrogen from the whole of the USSR and pour it underneath this whatever the elephant's foot thing and all that stuff. And it didn't actually have to be done. But it's really good on the podcast what they say is like when you have a 50-50 chance that this is going to disrupt the entire like water table of the entire like area.
Yeah.
You can't leave it to, you can't, 50-50 is not good enough.
Pretty damn big.
It's not good enough. It has to be done. So many people died. And the biorobots, my God, like just like him saying the word biorobots instead of saying humans, it's just basically them saying like, here's a way we can like, this is how you'll do it. Like there's no other way, man. Incredible. But I love that, they're not being painted as these, like specifically the miners. I thought they were like the highlight of that episode, at least that they were in. It's just that they were their own kind of, they were just like their own people, right? Like they have a code. They're like really like, old school, blue collar. And the fact that they're just like, oh, cool, you want us to do this? Yeah. I guess we got to do it now.
It was reminiscent of Umbaku likes a good fight. He's like, yeah, of course, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah,
why
exactly.
not? You know what I
mean? It's just but that's the power of people, man. Like people, you tell them this is what has to be done, or else the whole they'll be like, all right. For me, it's like it's my job. It's like less my duty and more. It's like, okay, this is my job. This is my job. My father had.
Yeah.
Like
we're doing it old school.
Just doing it old school. Man.
Dicks out.
So
let's
good.
do this old school.
Classic HBO. But
it had to happen,
man. But I love that. These people were responsible for saving their own nation and their own like country. I think that is fantastic. I think that the fact that literally they were so proud that they didn't even ask for help, but they got it done, man. Like I don't know if it would have been done quicker.
Yeah.
Like the big tragedy of the entire show is the one where the exclusion zone, first of all, is made to only like a really small area, and then they obviously increase it. But the delay between evacuation and the actual plant, melting down is so much time that's the great tragedy there for me. And the second one is the fact that these bureaucrats would just not accept that it's their own fault and they could have avoided this in the first place. So, but the people who came to save them are the very people who they are not subjugating, but you know what I mean.
Well, so that you've hit it on the head. I think it's if you juxtapose the very first episode with the last episode, with the last episode giving you the precursor to what happens in the fallout of the first episode, right? The first episode it's not real time, but it takes place over the course of a couple of hours, right?
Yeah.
And then every episode takes place like a week later, and then a month later, then like several months, and then like almost a year later kind of a thing, right? So
I think the whole show spans maybe 2 years,
something like that, So the first episode just shows you chaos, right? And nobody knows what to do. People are barking orders. People are running around like headless chickens. Nobody is believing the guys showing up red in the face, vomiting blood, being like, hey, yo, it's real, buddy. They're like, no, that can't be.
That guy is delusional. Take him to the infirmary.
Right, exactly. And so is that guy, so is that guy, so is that guy, and so is that guy. You're all
so
delusional.
Frustrating. Oh my God.
But in that vein, so like we're saying, like everybody saved the day because they're like, you gotta, like, literally a layman off the side of the road is picked up by a conscript and said, get on the bus, you're gonna die for country. He's like, okay, cool. I'm just a chef at a whatever.
Exactly.
But in that vein, if you look at the very last episode, when you look at the precursor leading up to the actual moment that the crisis happened, it's because a bunch of suits were sitting around and they were talking amongst themselves going like, hey, so the test can't really be done, but we can do it this way and get it done cheaper, get it done quicker. And it's just literally just a half a dozen small moments where like 3 dudes sitting in a room can do so much damage.
So much,
much damage just done by like one idiot being arrogant or like two guys
they
being...
try and put some motivation to his story,
the motivation,
to Dyatlov's
if I'm not mistaken, the motivation was simply just a matter matter of I can get promoted if I get this test done today.
So that's one thing. And there's a second thing, which is there, obviously, that Craig Mazin speaks about in the podcast, where he's talking about Dyatlov's son. And this is not Dyatlov's first brush with a radiation-related problem. And that his son passed away because of that.
Right.
So he's got this chip on his shoulder against, radiation, it's nothing. I'm fine.
Yeah.
This is nothing. Man, crazy story. We'll take a short break and we'll come back. We'll talk more about Chernobyl.
Hey everybody, welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You know, I have been asking you guys to do this. I think some of you are, but some of you aren't. Have you told your best friend about your favorite podcast? Please make sure you do that as well. You are our ambassadors. If you don't go out and evangelize on our behalf, who's going to do it? So please go out and tell somebody about the podcast you're listening to. If you think there's somebody who would enjoy it, refer them to IVM Podcast and tell them about all the stuff that they can find on our app or on our website or, Spotify, Savan, everywhere you're listening to podcasts, right? Just give it a shot. Also, guys, I'm going to be at Podcast Movement the coming week from the 13th to 16th of August. Podcast Movement is a conference in Orlando where we're going to be doing all kinds of podcasty stuff. So check it out. If you're in the area, please do come by and say hi. If you're not in the area, you can follow along with me by following, my social media in this case is Doshi Amit on most things. On the Scene and the Unseen, Amit Verma is joined by Pratik Sinha, co-founder of Alt News. They speak about living in the era of fake news, the far-reaching consequences of fake news, and the best way to debunk fake news. The English Premier League has begun and Football Twaddle is back with a new season. This season, they're introducing a Fantasy League episode which airs every Thursday along with regular episodes on Tuesday. Make sure you tune into both of them. On the last episode of this season of the Sponge Podcast, host Ambi Parmeshwaran talks about learning lessons from simple people and shares the story of Gooseby. On Tech Careers in the New, presented by Accenture, Sheila Aditya is joined by Gopali Contractor, Managing Director, Artificial Intelligence at Accenture. They talk about AI, ways to demystify it, its practical applications, and the career opportunities in this field. Check it out. I think you'll like this show. On Pulyabazi, the Hindi policy podcast, host Saurabh and Pranay talk to Mihir Mahajan, a patent strategy expert about intellectual property rights. On The Origin of Things, Chuck narrates a brand origin story that involves priests, traders, and education. Will you be able to guess the brand before Chuck reveals it? Find out by tuning in. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is joined by nutrition and lifestyle coach Rashi Malhotra. They talk about food substitutes and recipes for a healthy life. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Hey everybody, we're back. We're talking about Chernobyl. The one thing I was trying to say about Craig Mazin's dramatic change in making basically bro comedies. Yeah,
sure.
essentially.
Yeah, sure.
To this, what is bound to be award-winning and critically acclaimed anyway, Chernobyl, is that I think this one thing that is, and obviously I'm taking nothing away from the excellent team, whether it's a score which is haunting and beautiful, and or the cinematography, or just the cast. We've not even gotten to that, but I think the story is so compelling, and I think a thing that I love about this show is that it really doesn't have to create too many dramatic touch points, because the story itself is so dramatic, and it's so, it is a tragedy, and it is so heart-wrenchingly poignant at times and stuff, that it just has to follow the beats of the story. And there's so many parts in the podcast where he's talking about scenes that he had to edit. The thing that we left off talking about Dyatlov's, his backstory and stuff. Something that they decided to go against, which makes so much sense because it's taking away from what is the focus of the story, which is and obviously the urgency of it. But the story is it's on autopilot, man. For 2 years, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
That it just, obviously he had an incredible job of, constructing the storyline and the timeline of the events. But man, the actual truth of the story is haunting, man, and it's incredible. I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers, which we've spoken about on this show before, Veritasium, so channel. He's like a science communicator, and he did a video where he went to Chernobyl 4 years ago. This is well before the show, and now that video is kind of blowing up again because obviously people want to know. But he just goes around, walking around Pripyat, and he's just looking at the place, and it's literally just him, and everyone in the comments is basically like, "Yo, you fucking man, what are you doing here?" But apparently, it's fine. He has the sound of that. What is that thing? It's like a Geiger meter, or whatever it is. Yeah. That.
The wrong thing counter.
Oh my God. It's creepy, man. It's so scary. So he has that and he goes around and, and man, the insane part of it is that reactor 1, 2 and 3 was, still functional even while reactor 4 like melted down, because apparently that was the only reactor, that was the power plant that was powering the whole of Kiev and, like other places and other cities. So it was still on and they only shut down like in like 2000. The last one shut down 2000. But he goes around this place and the most haunting thing about it is that he says that, when people were asked to leave and, get out of this whole exclusion zone, they were given like 30 minutes notice or something like really, really like short. And they said, you'll be back in 2 weeks. This is what they said.
Leave your pet stick, whatever. Leave everything,
and they had to leave and never come back again. And he goes to these places, and you can see that their lives are still on display. Obviously, everything is coming apart and all that stuff. But like sewing machines, people's boxes are open. Like shit like that. That is insane. And like I found that, and he's like, dude, if you ever want to know what would happen if suddenly mankind had to leave the planet or something, this is what it would look. If we got blipped, this is what it would look like. Yeah. And it's incredible, man. Like I honestly, I mean, it's weird to bring up Endgame here, but like, I mean, I almost wanted to know what it was like in those 5 years where there was nobody there.
We will, right?
I'm sure, maybe we'll.
2030.
Yeah.
To that end, I love, like you say, the fact that it's kind of downplayed. Obviously, I think one of the first things everybody's going to be thinking when you start this show, if you haven't seen any trailers for it or haven't seen too much.
I didn't see a single trailer.
I didn't see a frame of the damn show. I was expecting, honestly, I went into this expecting it to be like a really grim, not to say that it isn't grim, but a really grim, morbid documentary, like a straight up documentary with like archival footage. And I was expecting talking head interviews. I thought it was like,
it was nonfiction.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Okay.
So so to that end, the big thing that I'm sure most people will be thinking about is, all right, so let's see this explosion then. And I love the fact that you see this explosion in the first like 5 minutes as you would expect to, but it's such a tiny little blip. It's in the background.
It's like a poof, and it's
literally I forget the firefighter's name. His wife just walking across the camera innocently in the middle of the night after like
Ignatenko.
Yes, right after she just leaves the bathroom and she's like just casually walking around the house and there's a little blue speck of light in the distance and I was like, wait, that's it?
And they even remarked saying that, oh wow, it looks so pretty.
Exactly, like, right? And so we know what, I mean, not that we don't know, but we can vaguely imagine the horrifying terror of being around an event like that, right? Or what that would look like. I love the fact that the first real major VFX moment where the audience is obviously going to go like, wow, that's cool, is the very last episode when you see an explosion for the first time, retold through the perspective of now knowing everything about that incident. They earned the one moment in the show where it's like, here's your Hollywood blockbuster moment. Here's the HBO budget.
Upward explosion.
Yeah. That's where the HBO bucks came in. Now the show's littered with a bunch of VFX because they had to rebuild Pripyat and rebuild a bunch of vistas and scene landscapes to show you.
I just don't even know what the production must have been like of doing this.
But that's the beauty of it, right? It's not a over-the-top kind of like, Game of Thrones level where it's like clearly you can see we've spent money on these sets and we want you to feel immersed in the world.
Yeah.
The world is glum. The world is pretty drab.
It's so desat,
we're not here to see a glorification of a horrible disaster.
Yeah.
We're here to see the story of people that have not had a chance to tell their story.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
these people are at their best when it's just a bunch of like a dozen dudes sitting around a table arguing amongst each other. Like that was like the most gripping thing ever. Like I remember when the first episode ended, I was scratching my head, one, obviously because of the accent still, and two, I was like, are these guys, is anybody here wearing like prosthetic? I'm stunned because I haven't recognized anybody really. And then the credits roll and I see Stellan Skarsgård's name and I didn't know he was in it, right? And then I see the credits and I see his name. I was like, wait, what? He was in this? I didn't notice. The next episode rolls in and there he is, boom. It's like, oh, okay, now I get a sense of familiarity. But I really like the fact that there wasn't any strong sense of familiarity where I can be like, come on now, do your thing, buddy. Like there was no preconceived notion, which is exactly how this should be because it's a story that doesn't have preconceived notions other than it was a really shitty day that we still, not we, but people in the area have to still suffer through.
Man, that's what I was. I don't know if I was watching an interview or listening to some, or was it on the podcast? I don't remember. But Stellan Skarsgård was talking about like how
he remembers it very vividly. I mean, he remembers the Chernobyl thing happening, and they weren't allowed to eat like mushrooms.
Right.
They weren't allowed to eat
So this
any
was in
of
like the post-episode thing.
Maybe, I think so. Yeah. And
they
they weren't allowed to eat reindeer because they would have eaten the moss. Shit, man.
And he was
what
in
a
Sweden,
life, man.
And it was like miles away.
That's one of the scariest things as well. Komyuk's introduction to the show is her sitting in a lab like thousands of kilometers away, or like at least 100 like plus kilometers away, and they just casually open the window and they have an alarm system in place for any radiation leak or whatever, and it goes off, and they're just like, wait, what? How is that possible? And just that.
And that is fact.
That actually happened.
That's not a.
This just the scary thing of all these guys saying, oh, it's only 3.6 Röntgen and stuff, and it's like, oh, your meter only goes up till there. That's it.
It's literally
that reminds me of Delhi's air pollution. Like the index, it's like so well past of that they cannot read it. Yeah. It's like that. Oh god.
No, it's very fitting to just. It's a continuously ongoing trouble that we have to deal with in various forms. But on the like in the political spectrum of things, it's the equivalent of like in Bombay, people dealing with like. Oh, the
floods.
The floods. Like, we've done the plastic ban, so now the floods aren't nearly as bad as 2005. Sure, but let's not use 2005 as our metric for success.
Let's
not use a nuclear holocaust to be like, is the place safe? Well, there's no holocaust happening. That's nice.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not safe.
That's not good.
You know
either.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like so.
Man, that's my. It's inevitable for me to kind of question. What would happen? This, one of the scariest lines in the show is that he's saying, he tells Sherbina, played by Skarsgård, he's telling him, Jared Harris says, you're dealing with something that has never happened on the planet before. Like, this has never happened before. Yeah. We don't know how to deal with this. Like, for me, that, like, first of all, it's what a statement to make. And secondly, it's like, you can't help but think that, what would you do in a situation like that? I keep bringing it back. For me, obviously the cost of lies, the government and the pride of the government not letting them. I mean, the pride of the government is something that has let them still keep the official death toll to 31 rather than like 90,000 possible fatalities or at least people who have been injured, who have had any kind of thing because of that, but at the same time the people who come up and just do that thing, I just think about India and I'm just like, would we be able to like deal with this? Like, I don't know how we'd be able to manage it, man. The very thing that makes them all we
would have is biorobots. That is literally the only card we would have.
No, but that's not the thing. No, I'm just talking about.
I'm not saying there'd be biorobots with conviction like
exactly.
These guys,
that's my
point. But
they
would be biorobots. They'd be shitty biorobots.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when I think about people or just generally anything, the things that make people unique are the qualities that make them good and bad, right? Like if a person is too sensitive, that makes them really generous, or like very caring, but at the same time makes them too sensitive.
Like a little weak.
Exactly. Sometimes, at the same time, like arrogance makes you strong and like can push you forward in life, but at the same time, it is like your dick.
Yeah.
And the very thing that the Soviet kind of now it seems to me like the same things that make them this arrogant, very proud nation are the same thing that saved them, man.
Yeah.
Like and that for me is like fantastic, and also at the same time it makes me think about India a lot, and I just wonder sometimes, like whether we have. I'm sure we do. I'm sure we'd be able to pull it together, but like. Man, it's crazy.
I think that applies not only to that applies to every country, everywhere. Everybody's dealing with a similar kind of a thing. It's in the vein of what you said about him saying this is something that the world has never seen. That's what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I think it's in the same conversation. If it's not, it's right next to it, where Jared Harris and Skarsgård are on the plane on the way to see the site for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's right after that first meeting with Gorbachev, and Jared Harris is a new player.
Yeah.
And basically, as you would imagine, with any circumstance like that, when it's a dozen political bigwigs and here in walks a random professor off the street, you're like, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm the only guy in this room that knows how a freaking nuclear power plant works. Do you guys know how this works? And that little card he plays is enough to be like, all right, fine, put him on the plane, let's go see what he's got to say.
Yeah.
And in 30 seconds, Skarsgård tells him on the plane, so tell me how it works. And he's like, okay, so it's kind of like a million bullets coming at you. And
man, that bullet thing is so...
he gives him a 30-second explanation. This is pretty much the gist of it. He gives him a 30-second super dumbed-down explanation to like just get the point across to him that this is really bad.
Dangerous,
And he goes, great, now I know how it works. It's like, and that one nugget of information is what motivates Sherbina's character arc for like the next 2-3 episodes. It's not until he sees a multi-million-dollar moon rover getting destroyed that he has a fit. And that tantrum he throws on the phone is the only time, I think...
It's a very human moment.
It's a very human moment, but the thing is, it took him like months to go from, I know how this works, and therefore I will now execute plan as I see fit, while Jared Harris is like throwing his hands up, be like, no, it's believe me, you think you know, but you still don't. It's a lot worse. And that's how the political system works. It's like intelligent people walk in, they go, yo, this is what needs to be done. The politician goes, I think I get the idea. I'll see what's convenient.
Classic bureaucrat.
Until it's too late, and they're like, and then the guy throws a fit, and it's only when the politician throws a fit that people listen.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But I mean, Sherbina, I mean, the last conversation that both Jared Harris and Skarsgård have is one of the best I've seen ever. You know, it's such a good conversation where they're both essentially like patting each other on the back, but it's like a mutual appreciation kind of thing that is happening. And he says that, one guy says, I'm just this nerd, nobody believes me. He's like, no, you have done all of this. The other one is like, oh, but I'm just a bureaucrat. He's like, no, you
worked the system.
You were the one who mattered, most in the end. And I think that was just like, it was exceptional, man. What a great show.
Great handshake moment.
Yeah, solid handshake moment. Solid like nod nod to each other. All right, so do we have anything else we have to say about this show apart from, if you obviously, I hope you've seen it, this is why you're listening to it, but yeah, man, I obviously recommend this show. We've spoken a lot out of context in the examples that we've given for why this show is so great. But if you have just started and you're listening to this, or even if you're finished and listening to this, tell us your thoughts. Tell us about Chernobyl. What was your reaction to it? Did you find something in it that we missed, that you loved? Any final thoughts, Jishnu? Like things that
this thing was a breath of fresh air. We need more. We need more mini series.
HBO redeemed themselves post Thrones.
My God, yes, completely.
They really redeemed
genuinely,
themselves.
I still have faith in HBO now. Like, it gave me a lot of Band of Brothers vibes in terms of just a singular story that was only as long as it needed to be.
Exactly. I mean, of course, both in both cases they are based in reality. So and obviously you don't want to.
Both handled beautifully.
Who directed Band of Brothers?
Do you know? It was. I want to say it was different directors per episode, but it was a Spielberg and Hanks production.
Correct, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Yeah, I knew that. All right, cool. So let us know what you think. Contact geekfruit@gmail.com. You can mail us, or you can even post on our social media. That's @geekfruithq on Twitter and Instagram. Cool. See you later, nerds.
Did I just catch you on your way to work? Or did you end up pulling an all-nighter? Let me guess. You have a packed schedule for the day, the week, and probably the month and the year. That's a lot for your mind to handle, don't you think? This buzzing chaos also brings tons of negative thoughts. Am I right? Try spinning that bottle in a positive direction with me, Chetna, on the Positively Unlimited podcast, every Monday on IBM Podcasts. It's time to change your life one alphabet at a time.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.